All right. Couple things. Um, One, it's super humid here, so sorry about my crazy hair. Second, a while ago I posted something on my TikTok, and I basically said my whole life, I've wished I could be in a book club where instead of just like being by yourself, you read your book and then you meet up with people and talk about it. I always wish there was a read aloud book club because I like to read out loud and I also like for people to read out loud to me. And surprisingly, there was a lot of feedback, way more than I expected. So, not a lot to some people, but I got about 400 people saying they would be interested in something like that. So, I'm finally uh, feeling unlazy enough to give it a try. So I was kind of bummed out because I have the book physically that I was just going to read from, but I can't find it. So I just found I have a PDF version of it, so we're just going to read from that for now. I was thinking, since this is the first try, I don't know how many people are even going to watch this, and I'll probably upload this to YouTube. It's broken up by chapters, and then each chapter has parts. I'll probably at the least finish the first chapter, which is comprised of the parts mango, flotsam, and voice. And then, depending on how we're feeling, I might go on to chapter two. But yes, for now, let's go ahead and get started. This is one of my favorite sci fi books. Um, if anything, it's kind of like a love story, just in a dystopian setting. At any rate, we'll go ahead and get started. Before the year of the flood came Oryx and Crake. All right. Oh, another thing, I'm probably going to be very minimal on voice changing. There's a lot of main character males in this book, and my male voice is really bad. I basically just make them sound like a bunch of big dummies, like this. This is my only male voice. So I'll probably just do very slight voice variations. Okay. Mango. Snowman wakes before dawn. He lies unmoving, listening to the tide coming in, wave after wave sloshing over the various barricades. Wish wash, wish wash, the rhythm of heartbeat. He would so like to believe he is still asleep. On the eastern horizon there's a grayish haze, lit now with a rosy, deadly glow. Strange how that color still seems tender. The offshore, the offshore towers stand out in dark silhouette against it, rising improbably out of the pink and pale blue of the lagoon. The shrieks of the birds that nest out there, and the distant ocean grinding against the ersatz reef of rusted car parts and jumbled bricks and assorted rubble, sound almost like holiday traffic. Out of habit, he looks at his watch. Stainless steel case, burnished aluminum band, still shiny, although it no longer works. He wears it now as his only talisman. A blank face is what it shows him. 0 hour. It causes a jolt of terror to run through him, this absence of official time. Nobody, nowhere, knows what time it is. Calm down, he tells himself. He takes a few deep breaths, then scratches his bug bites, around but not on the itchiest places, taking care not to knock off any scabs. Blood poisoning is the last thing he needs. Then he scans the ground below for wildlife. All quiet, no scales and tails. Left hand, right foot. Right hand, left foot. He makes his way down from the tree. After brushing off the twigs and bark, he winds his dirty bed sheet around himself like a toga. He's hung his authentic replica Red Sox baseball cap on a branch overnight for safekeeping. He checks inside it, flicks out a spider, puts it on. He walks a couple yards to the left, pisses into the bushes. Heads up, he says to the grasshoppers that whir away at the impact. Then he goes to the other side of the tree, well away from his customary urinal, and rummages around in the cache he's improvised from a few slabs of concrete, lining it with wire mesh to keep out the rats and mice. He's stashed some mangoes in there, knotted in a plastic bag, and a can of Svetlana no-meat cocktail sausages, and a precious half bottle of scotch. No, more like a third. And a chocolate-flavored energy bar scrounged from a trailer park, limp and sticky inside its foil. He can't bring himself to eat it yet. It might be the last one he'll ever find. He keeps a can opener there too, and for no particular reason, an ice pick, and 6 empty beer bottles, for sentimental reasons and for storing fresh water. Also his sunglasses. He puts them on. One lens is missing, but they're better than nothing. He undoes the plastic bag. There's only a single mango left. Funny, he remembered more. The ants have got in, even though he tied the bag as tightly as he could. Already they're running up his arms. The black kind and the vicious little yellow kind. Surprising what a sharp sting they can give, especially the yellow ones. He rubs them away. It is the strict adherence to daily routine that tends towards the maintenance of good morale and the preservation of sanity, he says out loud. He has the feeling he's quoting from a book, some obsolete, ponderous directive written in aid of European colonials running plantations of one kind or another. He can't recall ever having read such a thing, but that means nothing. There are a lot of blank spaces in his stub of a brain, where memory used to be. Rubber plantations, coffee plantations, jute plantations. What was jute? They would have been told to wear solar topis, dress for dinner, refrain from raping the natives. It wouldn't have said raping. Refrain from fraternizing with the female inhabitants. Or put some other way. He bets they didn't refrain, though. 9 times out of 10. In view of the mitigating, he says, he finds himself standing with his mouth open, trying to remember the rest of the sentence. He sits down on the ground and begins to eat the mango. Flotsam. On the white beach, ground-up coral and broken bones, a group of the children are walking. They must have been swimming. They're still wet and glistening. They should be more careful. Who knows what may infest the lagoon? But they're unwary, unlike Snowman, who won't dip a toe in there even at night when the sun can't get at him. Revision, especially at night. He watches them with envy. Or is it nostalgia? It can't be that. He never swam in the sea as a child. Never ran around on the beach without any clothes on. The children scan the terrain, stoop, pick up flotsam. Then they deliberate among themselves, keeping some items, discarding others. Their treasures go into a torn sack. Sooner or later, he can count on it. They'll seek him out where he sits, wrapped in his decaying sheet, hugging his shins and sucking on a mango. In under the shade of the trees because of the punishing sun. For the children, thick-skinned, resistant to ultraviolet, he's a creature of dimness, of the dusk. Here they come now. Snowman, oh snowman, they chant in their sing-song way. They never stand too close to him. Is that from respect, as he'd like to think? Or because he stinks? He does stink. He knows that well enough. He's rank, he's gamey, he reeks like a walrus. Oily, salty, fishy. Not that he's ever smelled such a beast, but he's seen pictures. Opening up their sack, the children chorus, "Oh, snowman, what have we found?" They lift out the objects, hold them up as if offering them for sale. A hubcap, a piano key, a chunk of pale green pop bottle smoothed by the ocean, a plastic Bliss Plus container, empty, a Chicky Knobs bucket o' nubbins, ditto, a computer mouse, or the busted remains of one with a long, wiry tail. Snowman feels like weeping. What can he tell them? There's no way of explaining to them what these curious items are, or were. But surely they've guessed what he'll say, because it's always the same. These are things from before. He keeps his voice kindly but remote, a cross between pedagogue, soothsayer, and benevolent uncle. That should be his tone. Will they hurt us? Sometimes they find tins of motor oil, caustic solvents, plastic bottles of bleach, booby traps from the past. He's considered to be an expert on potential accidents. Scalding liquids, sickening fumes, poison dust, pain of odd kinds. These? No, he says. These are safe. At this they lose interest, let the sack dangle, but they don't go away. They stand there. They stare. Their beachcombing is an excuse. Mostly they want to look at him because he's so unlike them. Every so often they ask him to take off his sunglasses and put them on again. They want to see whether he has 2 eyes, really, or 3. Snowman, oh snowman, they're singing, less to him than to one another. To them, his name is just 2 syllables. They don't know what a snowman is. They've never seen snow. It was one of Crake's rules that no name could be chosen for which a physical equivalent, even stuffed, even skeletal, could not be demonstrated. No unicorns, no griffins, no manticores or basilisks. But those rules no longer apply, and it's given Snowman a bitter pleasure to adopt this dubious label. The abominable snowman, existing and not existing, flickering at the edges of blizzards, ape-like man or man-like ape, stealthy, elusive, known only through rumors and through its backward-pointing footprints. Mountain tribes were said to have chased it down and killed it when they had the chance. They were said to have boiled it, roasted it, held special feasts, all the more exciting, he supposes, for bordering on cannibalism. For present purposes, he's shortened the name. He's only Snowman. He's kept the abominable to himself, his own secret hair shirt. After a few moments of hesitation, the children squat down in a half circle, boys and girls together. A couple of the younger ones are still munching on their breakfasts, the green juice running down their chins. It's discouraging how grubby everyone gets without mirrors. Still, they're amazingly attractive, these children. each one naked, each one a different skin color: chocolate, rose, tea, butter, cream, honey, but each with green eyes. Crake's aesthetic. They're gazing at Snowman expectantly. They must be hoping he'll talk to them, but he isn't in the mood for it today. At the very most, he might let them see his sunglasses, up close, or his shiny, dysfunctional watch, or his baseball cap. They like the cap, but don't understand his need for such a thing. Removable hair that isn't hair. And he hasn't yet invented a fiction for it. They're quiet for a bit, staring, ruminating. But then the oldest one starts up. "Oh, Snowman, please tell us, what is that moss growing out of your face?" The others chime in. "Please tell us, please tell us." No nudging, no giggling. The question is serious. "Feathers," he says. They ask this question at least once a week. He gives the same answer. Even over such a short time, 2 months, 3, he's lost count. They've accumulated a stock of lore, of conjecture about him. Snowman was once a bird, but he's forgotten how to fly and the rest of his feathers fell out. And so he is cold and he needs a second skin and he has to wrap himself up. No, he's cold because he eats fish and fish are cold. No, he wraps himself up because he's missing his man thing and he doesn't want us to see. That's why he won't go swimming. Snowman has wrinkles because he once lived underwater and it wrinkled up his skin. Snowman is sad because the others like him flew away over the sea and now he is all alone. "I want feathers too," says the youngest. A vain hope. No beards on the men among the children of Crake. Crake himself had found beards irrational. Also, he had been irritated by the task of shaving, so he'd abolished the need for it. Though not, of course, for Snowman. Too late for him. Now they all begin at once. "Oh, Snowman, can we have feathers too, please?" "No," he says. "Why not? Why not?" sing the 2 smallest ones. "Just a minute, I'll ask Crake." He holds his watch up to the sky, turns it around on his wrist, and then puts it to his ear as if listening to it. They follow each motion, enthralled. "No," he says. "Crake says you can't. No feathers for you. Now piss off." "Piss off? Piss off?" They look at one another, then at him. He's made a mistake. He's said a new thing, one that's impossible to explain. Piss isn't something they'd find insulting. What is piss off? "Go away!" He flaps his sheet at them and they scatter, running along the beach. They're still not sure whether to be afraid of him, or how afraid. He hasn't been known to harm a child, but his nature is not fully understood. There's no telling what he might do. Voice. "Now I'm alone," he says out loud. All alone. Alone on a wide, wide sea. One more scrap from the burning scrapbook in his head. Revision. Seashore. He feels the need to hear a human voice, a fully human voice like his own. Sometimes he laughs like a hyena or roars like a lion. His idea of a hyena. His idea of a lion. He used to watch old DVDs of such creatures when he was a child. Those animal behavior programs featuring copulation and growling and innards and mothers licking their young. Why had he found them so reassuring? Or he grunts and squeals like a pigoon, or howls like the wolvog. Arr! Arr! Sometimes in the dusk, he runs up and down on the sand, flinging stones at the ocean and screaming, "Shit! Shit! 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 Shit!" He feels better afterwards. He stands up and raises his arms to stretch, and his sheet falls off. He looks down at his body with dismay. The grimy, bug-bitten skin, the salt and pepper tufts of hair, the thickening yellow toenails. Naked as the day he was born. Not that he can remember a thing about that. So many crucial events take place behind people's backs when they aren't in a position to watch. Birth and death, for instance, and the temporary oblivion of sex. Don't even think about it, he tells himself. Sex is like drink. It's bad to start brooding about it too early in the day. He used to take good care of himself. He used to run, work out at the gym. Now he can see his own ribs. He's wasting away. Not enough animal protein. A woman's voice says caressingly in his ears, "Nice buns." It isn't Oryx. It's some other woman. Oryx is no longer very talkative. "Say anything," he implores her. She can hear him. He needs to believe that. But she's giving him the silent treatment. "What can I do?" he asks her. "You know I—" "Ooh, nice abs," comes the whisper, interrupting him. "Honey, just lie back." Who is it? Some tart he once bought. Revision, professional sex skills expert. A trapeze artist. Rubber spine, spangles glued onto her like the scales of a fish. He hates these echoes. Saints used to hear them. Crazed, lice-infested hermits in their caves and deserts. Perhaps soon he'll be seeing beautiful demons, beckoning to him, licking their lips with red-hot nipples and flickering pink tongues. Mermaids will rise from the waves, out there beyond the crumbling towers, and he'll hear their lovely singing and swim out to them and be eaten by sharks. Creatures with the heads and breasts of women and the talons of eagles will swoop down on him, and he'll open his arms to them, and that will be the end. Brain frizz. Or worse, some girl he knows or knew will come walking towards him through the trees, and she'll be happy to see him, but she'll be made of air. He'd welcome even that for the company. He scans the horizon, using his one sunglassed eye. Nothing. The sea is hot metal, the sky a beached blue, except for the hole burnt in it by the sun. Everything is so empty. Water, sand, sky, trees, fragments of past time. Nobody to hear him. "Crake!" he yells. "Asshole! Shit for brains!" He listens. The salt water is running down his face again. He never knows when that will happen, and he can never stop it. His breath is coming in gasps, as if a giant hand is clenching around his chest. Clench, release, clench. Senseless panic. "You did this!" he screams at the ocean. No answer, which isn't surprising. Only the waves. Wish-wash. Wish-wash. He wipes his fist across his face, across the grime and tears and snot and the derelict whiskers and sticky mango juice. Snowman, snowman, he says, get a life. Alright, so that's technically the end of our first chapter with our 3 parts. I think I'll go on a little bit longer just because it's kind of fun and it's only been 25 minutes. So next chapter is chapter 2. It's also broken into 3 parts. I think we go back in the past a little bit, but let's see. Bonfire. Once upon a time, Snowman wasn't Snowman. Instead, he was Jimmy. He'd been a good boy then. Jimmy's earliest complete memory was of a huge bonfire. He must have been 5, maybe 6. He was wearing red rubber boots with a smiling duck's face on each toe. He remembers that because after seeing the bonfire, he had to walk through a pan of disinfectant in those boots. They said the disinfectant was poisonous, and he shouldn't splash, and then he was worried that the poison would get into the eyes of the ducks and hurt them. He'd been told the ducks were only like pictures. They weren't real and had no feelings, but he didn't quite believe it. So let's say 5.5, thinks Snowman. That's about right. The month could have been October or else November. The leaves still turned color then, and they were orange and red. It was muddy underfoot. He must have been standing in a field, and it was drizzling. The bonfire was an enormous pile of cows and sheep and pigs. Their legs stuck out stiff and straight. Gasoline had been poured onto them. The flames shot up and out. Sorry. Oh my goodness, what bad timing. Okay. Their legs stuck out stiff and straight. Gasoline had been poured onto them. The flames shot up and out, yellow and white and red and orange, and the smell of charred flesh filled the air. It was like the barbecue in the backyard when his father cooked things, but a lot stronger, and mixed in with it was a gas station smell and the odor of burning hair. Jimmy knew what burning hair smelled like because he'd cut off some of his own hair with the manicure scissors and set fire to it with his mother's cigarette lighter. The hair had frizzled up, squiggling like a clutch of tiny black worms, so he'd cut off some more and done it again. By the time he was caught, his hair was all ragged along the front. When accused, he'd said it was an experiment. His father had laughed then, but his mother hadn't. At least, his father said, Jimmy had the good sense to cut the hair off before torching it. His mother said it was lucky he hadn't burned the whole house down. Then they had an argument about the cigarette lighter, which wouldn't have been there, said father, if his mother didn't smoke. His mother said that all children were arsonists at heart, and if not for the lighter, he'd have used matches. Once the fight got going, Jimmy felt relieved because he'd known then that he wouldn't be punished. All he had to do was say nothing, and pretty soon they'd forget why they'd started arguing in the first place. But he also felt guilty because look what he made them do. He knew it would end with a door being slammed. He scrunched down lower and lower in his chair, with the words whizzing back and forth over his head, and finally there was the bang of the door, his mother this time, and the wind that came with it. There was always a wind when the door got slammed. A small puff, whoof, right in his ears. "Never mind, old buddy," said his father. "Women always get hot under the collar. She'll cool down. Let's have some ice cream." So that's what they did. They had raspberry ripple in the cereal bowls with the blue and red birds on them that were handmade in Mexico, so you shouldn't put them in the dishwasher. and Jimmy ate his all up to show his father that everything was okay. Women and what went on under their collars. Hotness and coldness, coming and going in the strange, musky, flowery, variable weather country inside their clothes. Mysterious, important, uncontrollable. That was his father's take on things. But men's body temperatures were never dealt with. They were never even mentioned. Not when he was little, except when his dad said, "Chill out." Why weren't they? Why nothing about the hot collars of men? Those smooth, sharp-edged collars with their dark, sulphurous, bristling undersides? He could have used a few theories on that. The next day his father took him to a haircut place, where there was a picture of a pretty girl in the window with pouty lips and a black t-shirt pulled down off one shoulder, glaring out through smudgy charcoal eyes with a mean stare and her hair standing up, stiff like quills. Inside there was hair all over the tiled floor, in clumps and wisps. They were sweeping it up with a push broom. First Jimmy had a black cape put on him, only it was more like a bib, and Jimmy didn't want that because it was babyish. The haircut man laughed and said it wasn't a bib because who had ever heard of a baby with a black bib on? So it was okay. And then Jimmy got a short all-over cut to even out the ragged places, which maybe was what he'd wanted in the first place. Shorter hair. Then he had stuff out of a jar put on it to make it spiky. It smelled like orange peels. He smiled at himself in the mirror, then scowled, thrusting down his eyebrows. "Tough guy," said the haircut man, nodding at Jimmy's father. "What a tiger." He wished Jimmy's cut-off hair onto the floor with all the other hair, then removed the black cape with a flourish and lifted Jimmy down. At the bonfire, Jimmy was anxious about the animals, because they were being burned, and surely that would hurt them. No, his father told him. The animals were dead. They were like steak and sausages, only they still had their skins on. And their heads, thought Jimmy. Steaks didn't have heads. The heads made a difference. He thought he could see the animals looking at him reproachfully out of their burning eyes. In some way, all of this, the bonfire, the charred smell, but most of all the lit-up, suffering animals, was his fault, because he'd done nothing to rescue them. At the same time, he found the bonfire was a beautiful sight, luminous like a Christmas tree, but a Christmas tree on fire. He hoped there might be an explosion, as on television. Jimmy's father was beside him, holding on to his hand. "Lift me up," said Jimmy. His father assumed he wanted to be comforted, which he did, and picked him up and hugged him. But Jimmy also wanted to see better. "This is where it ends," said Jimmy's father. Not to Jimmy, but to a man standing with them. "Once things get going." Jimmy's father sounded angry. So did the man when he answered. "They say it was brought in on purpose." "I wouldn't be surprised," said Jimmy's father. "Can I have one of the cow horns?" said Jimmy. He didn't see why they should be wasted. He wanted to ask for 2, but that might be pushing it. "No," said his father. "Not this time, old buddy." He patted Jimmy's leg. "Drive up the prices," said the man. "Make a killin' on their own stuff that way." "It's a killin' all right," said Jimmy's father in a disgusted tone. "But it could have just been a nut bar, some cult thing. You never know." "Why not?" said Jimmy. Nobody else wanted the horns. But this time his father ignored him. "The question is, how did they do it?" he said. "I thought our people had us sealed up as tight as a drum." "I thought they did too. We fork out enough. What were the guys doing? They're not paid to sleep. It could have been bribery, said Jimmy's father. They'll check out the bank transfers, though you'd have to be pretty dumb to stick that kind of money into a bank. Anyway, heads will roll. Fine-tooth comb, and I wouldn't want to be them, said the man. Who comes in from outside? Guys who repair things? Delivery vans? They should bring all that in-house. I hear that's the plan, said father. This bug is something new, though. We've got the bioprint. Two can play at that game, said the man. Any number can play, said Jimmy's father. Why were the cows and sheep on fire? Jimmy asked his father the next day. They were having breakfast, all three of them together, so it must have been a Sunday. That was the day when his mother and his father were both there at breakfast. Jimmy's father was on his second cup of coffee. While he drank it, he was making notes on a page covered with numbers. They had to be burned, he said, to keep it from spreading. He didn't look up. He was fooling with his pocket calculator, jotting with his pencil. What from spreading? The disease. What's a disease? A disease is like when you have a cough, said his mother. If I have a cough, will I be burned up? Most likely, said his father, turning over the page. Jimmy was frightened by this because he'd had a cough the week before. He might get another one at any moment. Already there was something sticking in his throat. He could see his hair on fire. Not just a strand or two on a saucer, but all of it still attached to his head. He didn't want to be put in a heap with the cows and the pigs. He began to cry. How many times do I have to tell you? Said his mother. He's too young. Daddy's a monster once again, said Jimmy's father. It was a joke, pal. You know, joke. Ha ha. He doesn't understand those kinds of jokes. Sure he does, don't you, Jimmy? Yes, said Jimmy, sniffling. Leave Daddy alone, said his mother. Daddy is thinking. That's what they pay him for. He doesn't have time for you right now. His father threw down the pencil. Cripes, can't you give it a rest? His mother stuck her cigarette into her half-empty coffee cup. Come on, Jimmy. Let's go for a walk. She hauled Jimmy up by one wrist, closed the back door with an exaggerated care behind them. She didn't even put their coats on. No coats, no hats. She was in her dressing gown and slippers. The sky was gray, the wind chilly. She walked head down, her hair blowing. Around the house they went, over the soggy lawn at a double quick pace, hand in hand. Jimmy felt he was being dragged through deep water by something with an iron claw. He felt buffeted, as if everything was about to be wrenched apart and whirled away. At the same time, he felt exhilarated. He watched his mother's slippers. Already they were stained with damp earth. He'd get in big trouble if he did that to his own slippers. They slowed down, then stopped. Then his mother was talking to him in the quiet, nice lady TV teacher voice that meant she was furious. A disease, she said, was invisible because it was so small. It could fly through the air or hide in the water or on little boys' dirty fingers, which was why you shouldn't stick your fingers up your nose and then put them in your mouth, and why you should always wash your hands after you went to the bathroom, and why you shouldn't wipe— I know, said Jimmy. Can I go inside? I'm cold. His mother acted as if she hadn't heard him. A disease, she continued in that calm, stretched voice. A disease got into you and changed things inside you. It rearranged you cell by cell, and that made the cells sick. And since you were all made up of tiny cells working together to make sure you stayed alive, and if enough of the cells got sick, then you... I could get a cough, said Jimmy. I could get a cough right now. He made a coughing sound. Oh, never mind, said his mother. She often tried to explain things to him. Then she got discouraged. These were the worst moments for both of them. He resisted her. He pretended he didn't even understand when he did. He acted stupid, but he didn't want her to give up on him. He wanted her to be brave, to try her best with him, to hammer away at the wall he'd put up against her, to keep on going. I want to hear about the tiny cells, he said, whining as much as he dared. I want to. Not today, she said. Let's just go in. Organic Farms. Jimmy's father worked for Organic Farms. He was a genographer, one of the best in the field. He'd done some of the key studies on mapping the protonome when he was still a postgrad, and then he'd helped engineer the Methuselah mouse as part of Operation Immortality. After that, at Organic Farms, he'd been one of the foremost architects of the Pigoon project, along with a team of transplant experts and the microbiologists who were splicing against infections. Pigoon was only a nickname. The official name was Sus Multi-Organifier. But Pigoon was what everyone said. Sometimes they said Organoink Farms, but not as often. It wasn't a real farm anyway, not like the farms in the pictures. The goal of the Pigoon project was to grow an assortment of foolproof human tissue organs in a transgenic knockout pig host. Organs that would transplant smoothly and avoid rejection, but would also be able to fend off attacks by opportunistic microbes and viruses, of which there were more strains every year. A rapid maturity gene was spliced into the Pigoon kidneys and livers and hearts, would be ready sooner, and now they were perfecting a Pigoon that could grow 5 or 6 kidneys at a time. Such a host animal could be reaped of its extra kidneys. Then, rather than being destroyed, it could keep on living and grow more organs, much as a lobster could grow another claw to replace a missing one. That would be less wasteful, as it took a lot of food and care to grow a Pigoon. Pigeon? I don't know. A great deal of investment money had gone into Organic Farms. All of this was explained to Jimmy when he was old enough. Old enough, Snowman thinks as he scratches himself, around, but not on top of the insect bites. Such a dumb concept. Old enough for what? To drink? To fuck? To know better? What fathead was in charge of making those decisions? For example, Snowman himself isn't old enough for this, what can it be called? This situation? He'll never be old enough. No sane human being could ever... Each of us must tread the path laid out before him or her, says the voice in his head. A man's voice this time, the style bogus guru. And each path is unique. It is not the nature of the path itself that should concern the seeker, but the grace and strength and patience with which each and every one of us follows these sometimes challenging... Stuff it, said Snowman. Some cheap do-it-yourself enlightenment handbook, nirvana for half-wits. Though he has the nagging feeling that he may well have written this gem himself. In happier days, naturally. Oh, so much happier. All right, I know this is literally right in the middle of a chapter, but I'm going to start because my mouth is getting tired, and I think 44 minutes is a long time to listen to somebody read. Like I said, I'll be posting this on YouTube, and I'll also make an update to my TikTok where everybody voted and said they would love to be a part of a read-along book club, and we'll just kind of see what happens. So, yep, I'm leaving now. Goodbye.